Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at @It'sJessino. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a live match preview for Arsenal versus Aston Villa home game. So yeah, we're going to chit chat a little bit about what we'd like to see in this game, what our score predictions are, those things, all the things that you do for a preview. We all kind of do the same things, but yeah, we're just going to do them again here, like with our perspective on it. So nothing too, no amazing, whatever. But yeah, Dubber Ducky, there's somebody going around that's disliking. They have a bot going around that's disliking a bunch of different YouTubers things. It's fine. They will go away eventually. But yeah. So in order to counteract those dislikes, let's like the video a little bit, share it with a friend, get in the chat box. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this match versus Aston Villa. It's an important match. I think every game is important, but I think when you go through a small run of not so great form, you want to kind of like change things up. I guess we probably want to see a better brand of football. We want to see more goals go in, those types of things. So yeah, besides the obvious of wanting a win, we'll talk about the intricacies of what we'd like to see. There are definitely some things that we could be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Souls. Souls has been waiting for me all day. I've been leaving him waiting. I feel so bad, but he knows what it's like working with me, so he'll forgive me for now. Hey, Souls, how are you?
I'm good. I just want a confirmation if we're doing a show. That's all. That's all.
I mean, we usually do, but then like I know sometimes I'm like, wait, no, never mind, not today. So yeah, I get you. But yeah, Aston Villa. Um, is a team that I feel like there's like this unnecessary, weird Aston Villa fan conjured up rivalry between the two of us, which there is no rivalry whatsoever. But it all kind of started with Emi Martinez leaving Arsenal to go there. And then the Buendia thing, and then them trying to get Emil Smith Rowe, which has kind of been this little thing between Arsenal and Aston Villa that doesn't really exist. And it doesn't help that we really haven't beat them in the last 3 times that we played them. Not only that, I do remember that we actually were the team that saved them from going down a couple of seasons prior. I remember that game. It was like 1-0. And we could have sent them down, and we probably should have. Now kind of thinking like in hindsight, like we really should have tried to send them down. Jack Grealish might have been more available had that have happened, but that's a sidebar. But yeah, so they're a team it's interesting because the 2 teams that we're playing next are, one is right above us and one is right below us. Aston Villa is below us and Leicester is right above us. And we have 11 points. We're tied with at 11 points with Leicester City, and Aston Villa has 10. So we're right in the thick of things. I mean, when you look at the standings, they don't look too bad in terms of like, okay, if we could get 2 wins here, then this could happen. But we know how that kind of works. We never really get the points that we're supposed to. But for you, seeing that we're kind of sandwiched in between Leicester City and Aston Villa, does it put a little bit more weight on some of these games, because they're 6-pointers in essentially, because we'll be able to push teams that are around us down and kind of go up at the same time? Is that what's kind of important about these games, or is it something else, maybe like form and performance and things like that?
It's a bit of everything, really. It's let's set the tone. We're the first team to play this game week. Obviously, we're the last team to play last game week. Just set the tone, put the pressure on the teams to need to win. Obviously, we know United and Liverpool are playing each other, which one of them is going to drop points. Obviously, preferably United because we're closer to them than we are to Liverpool at the moment. No, I don't mean in terms of how we are in the season. I'm just talking point-wise. So obviously, if we get the 3 points, I think we're even on points. So it means United will have to go for the game to obviously capitalise and get them 3 points ahead again. So it puts the pressure on them. Obviously, Chelsea playing Norwich, which we can write off, obviously, unless there's a shock result there.
Mm-hmm.
Man City, Brighton, again, that doesn't really matter to us. But Leicester are playing Brentford, for example, which is, again, another game which could go either way this season. We know how well Brentford have started off. Even against Chelsea, you can argue they were unfortunate to get the draw, but they kind of deserve to lose after the way they played. So that's going to be a good one because they could also be dropping points. So that's why I think we just need to go in this and just get the win. Like at this point, I'm not even begging for anything. I just want just win, because that sets the precedence of other teams being pressured to needing to win rather than when we get pressured to win. And we just need to start capitalizing on these opportunities, because it's about setting the tone early in the season for me. That helps you as you go through, because we've always said we're not going to have the poor form that we had after United last season when we beat them, and we went on like, was it like 2 months early that we didn't win a game or something, and that was bad because they if we had won one of those games, we would have been in Europe. So that's how fine the margins were and how bad the league overall was last season. So we need to start picking these wins up, and we need to start beating teams that we couldn't beat last season if Arteta is to say he's improved or he's figured things out or he's gotten better. Obviously, you've got to beat the teams you beat anyway, but at least beat the teams you couldn't beat and that aren't as good as us. They've lost Jack Grealish, and I know people are going to say, but they bought Leon Bailey and they bought in Danny Ings, they bought in, who else did they bring in now? They bought in another winger, didn't they? They bought Leon Bailey and they bought Danny Ings, they bought in Buendia, that's it. So some people are going to say maybe not, they need time to gel because obviously they bought in like 5 players in. Some people are saying that actually they bought the right recruits in. They won't need much time to gel. Obviously, knowing Leon Bailey's now fit as well. Obviously, he's playing Arsenal. All of them miraculously get fit when they come to us. That's going to be a good test for our team. And I think this is going to be one. If we beat Villa, it'll be a good win for us because they are a team. They're up and down. They're not the best on form, but it'd be a good statement to send out to be like, look, we've made mistakes in the past, but at least we've beaten one of those.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a little bit of wanting to make sure that we're still. I don't want to play catch up for the entire season. I think for me, we as Arsenal fans, we are Arsenal. We tend to throw away chunks of the season. We tend to either throw away the beginning or the end. A lot of times it's the beginning because we tend to start slow, and then we're playing catch up the entire time. And so for me, what I'd like to do, I would like to see in this game is for us to stop the rot. I think we have yet to see since the Spurs match a similar performance level. And that needs to come at some point. Like it's starting to look like that was a fluke. I know we all know that we played a really weak Spurs team, but I don't think Brighton and Crystal Palace are so good and they were so organized and so great. I think they did the bare minimum and we just didn't really show up the way that we should. And we had some tactical issues and things like that. But for me, it's about not playing catch up. If we could stop the rot now and win a couple of games and reset, then we could, once we get past these 10 games, the league really starts to firm up a little bit more, and it becomes more difficult to have a win that could get you up a couple of spots. It'll be you need to put together 2 or 3 wins to do anything, and then somebody has to drop points. So we're still in that weird position in the season where it's like string together a couple of wins, and we're looking at the season so much differently. If you don't string together those wins and then you go into that really tough period in November, December, then it's looking like, okay, oh shit, we didn't do what we were supposed to do. So for me, it's about stopping the rot and just getting back on track. I think we've lost ourselves just a little bit. And I want to see the Arsenal that I saw just a couple of games ago where we looked even just a little bit more organized just a couple of games ago. It seems like we've really just kind of lost our way because Xhaka's not here. But, there's been a lot of kind of talk on Twitter about what was wrong with what we did against Palace. I know that Arteta went into his press conference and said exactly what he felt like went wrong. Everybody knows that the midfield was not right. The balance was off, and things like that. But how does he take those ideas and the knowledge of knowing that like this was what's wrong and change it and implement it in the next game to make it work? It seems like Arteta's a very smart man. Like he knows what he got wrong, but do you have the confidence that he's going to go into the next match with a plan that's going to rectify what was wrong in the last match? Can you see him maybe removing an Odegaard? Can you see him maybe going back to the double pivot and bringing in an El Nene. Like, can you see those things happening, or do you think he'll kind of stick with the same, even though it didn't work?
You know what? As stubborn as he is, normally we've said this before. He has a trend of, and this is part of one of those things I wish he didn't do this season. And you know what? Like draw. I know this is going to sound crazy, but drawing those 2 games after the 3 games that we've had is probably a good thing, because now I want to see, okay, we didn't drop points completely. We got a point out of those 2 games. Whether we deserve more or, whatever, that I don't even want to get into that, because we got lucky. For me, against Crystal Palace, we got lucky to get a draw. Against Brighton, fair enough. Like, you can say what you want to say, because it was a fair, I won't say it's a balanced game, but if they had finishes, they would have won. Now I want to see it like, okay, we've had 2 performances which we're not proud of, we're not happy about. Okay, you're missing, but the problem I have, you're missing one player. It shouldn't have offset the balance this much. And for me, it's like, okay, just do the logical thing. Don't try and overcomplicate it, because you do have players who have got a defensive mindset in terms of El Neni. And even if you played ANC Maitland, even though he's not my choice to play, and I want El Neni because I just feel like he's a bit more experienced and culture to be a midfielder, then
And let's be real, and El Neni has a screamer in him every once in a while. There might be an opportunity for a goal coming.
Exactly. Instead of Party taking the shots, I'd much rather El Neni take them right now. But you know what I mean? Like, I just want him to do the logical thing. Don't go away from what you've set this team to do. Because you know what the thing is, right? And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, why do the players look confused? Because you've changed the system too much. Not you've changed one thing, or you've brought in a Pepe instead of Saka, for example. No, what you've done is you've completely changed the structure. You've completely changed it. And you can start to see it. Like, there's certain moves and there's certain things that they're doing, but then they realize, it's like Parties, for example, the mistake that, it's a mistake that Party made. He turned back and then realized, oh crap, actually, I've got no one next to me, so this isn't going to work. And by the time he did that, he couldn't turn back. And yes, maybe he should be he should be better than that. Maybe the quality of play he should know better. But sometimes, you know what, football is instincts, especially under pressure. You do what you're comfortable doing, not what you should be doing, if that makes sense. Like, it's happened to us when we're under pressure. Sometimes we go back to what we know, or back to basics, and that is for Partey turning and then finding a Xhaka or an El Neni or someone, whoever's next to him, and that wasn't there because he was under pressure. Otherwise, if he wasn't under pressure, he probably passes that to Tomiyasu or Pepe or whoever. I can't remember who was right in front of him. So that's kind of what I think it is. And for me, keep the structure and try and play the right players. I've never advocated for Partey and Lokonga to play together. And again, the single pivot can work against teams like a Burnley or teams with weak midfields that don't really press in the midfield. Then you can do it, because you're not going to get overloaded in the middle. You're going to get wider overloads, which this is perfect for, because you've got ESR and Odegaard wide anyway to support the wide overloads that they're going to create. But when you do that, and you've got Crystal Palace like Conor Gallagher coming at you, Milivojevic coming at you, and then obviously Edouard went from the wing into middle just to support the midfield, to overload that. That's when you start to get these problems. And I'm not saying El Neni's quality is going to save us. It's more just it makes sense as a profile. And that's all I want to see from him. And I think I think he's got it in him, and I think he knows that's the thing he should have done. But there's a bit of like, I want to try something, and I'm like, don't try it, just don't. Like, someone needs to tell him, don't. Trust me, just don't. Do it in the preseason or a League Cup, like for example, Wimbledon. That's where you do your experiments.
Wasn't that the whole point of him having a preseason? Like, that was one of the biggest things that we heard, and not to go because I think we do need to go back just a little bit. The whole point of give Arteta more time is because he hadn't had enough time with his players, and he never had a preseason. And I'm not really seeing the level of like, oh, he worked on that shit and now it's coming to fruition. It seemed like there was little bits of what we were trying to do last season sprinkled in with some incomplete ideas that have been disrupted by the fact that in the first 3 games, we didn't have a lot of our players. And then we kind of got it together. And then now we have Xhaka out. And I do think that a lot of Arteta's system revolves around Granit and Kieran Tierney. I think those two players in particular, because even in large spells of last season, we got away with not having Thomas in the team. I think Xhaka is actually the player that if he's gone, that's it. Like, because you also think about there's also people in the comment section saying that that might be why KT is suffering. Kieran Tierney looked normal against Spurs. He doesn't look the same. And maybe it's because Granit is not there to give him those passes that he's used to getting. There's just his system is really reliant on certain people. And I would prefer the system to be something that just works. And then we try to replicate it regardless of who's there. It may not be as good with El Neni because we know he's not Granit, but it gives you the double pivot and the ability to play Thomas in the same way, which is really important as well. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. And also because I know Aston Villa is a pressy team. It worries me a little bit that they're a pressy team. They can run. Their midfielders are fit. Not fit like that, you guys. I know somebody from over there is gonna be like, "Oh my God, you think he's fit?" No, not that type of fit. They can run in that midfield. You have McGinn, you have Douglas Luiz, and then they'll probably play Buendia in the midfield as well. So those players, they can run. They're aggressive. And what I would love to see us do is kind of go back to basics in the way that we used to play, where we would draw players into us and then kind of hit them on the break, or like draw them in and then play over the top or into the channels to some of our more runners. That's what I would like to see us do, because I haven't seen it in a while. Have you, Souls, where we used to kind of like draw them in and we would kind of play around and then find the outlet and then hit them on the break, by hitting like Saka and ESR in the channels or whatever. We don't really do that anymore. And I'm like, isn't the whole point of letting people press us and come on to us so that we can do our thing and hit them on the break? Where is that kind of element gone? And do you think that that's something that we could use to our advantage against Villa with some of our more quick players, into those channels?
Yeah, I think against Spurs, 2 of our goals came like that. I think Aubameyang's came from a quick sort of switch of play. It wasn't so much over the top, but it was just a quick transition. And then Saka's kind of came from that sort of counter. I think that's why a lot of people are annoyed, because against Spurs, we've shown all 3 sides of us, that we can transition quickly. We can do the over the top and hit like Saka to get in behind, and we can do the intricate little passes. And I think that was for ESR's goal, where we did like a good passage move and then we broke him in. And that's why it's annoying, because I've always said, even if we see 60-70% of that, I'll be happy, because that's what I know. A North London derby like set of play can't be replicated, because it is an atmosphere. It is getting up for a game like that, and I know you can't do that every single. We'd love it, but it doesn't happen. Even Man City can't do that. It's just different when you get up for those games. But for me, it's like, we'll see this more once. And the thing is, to counteract sort of Aston Villa's press, you've got to bring someone hardworking in. El Neni, the thing is, look, I've never rated his technical ability, but the one thing El Neni will give you is a lot of hard work. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, he does give you hard work. He doesn't really, he's not someone who just sits there and, relies, because he knows he's not. He's not tech. It's like Kante. I'm not comparing the two, by the way, but I'm just saying, like Kante, for example, he's not technically gifted. But one thing.
Oh my gosh, you're comparing El Neni to Kante.
All right, you know what?
now?
I am. Fuck it. I am now. I am gonna now. Yeah, because that should rile everyone up. No, but what I'm saying is, like, they're not technically gifted players, but what they do is they work hard to make up for the fact they're not technically gifted, and that's what. I'm not saying with El Neni, but with Kante, that's what makes him really good and so liked, because he works hard. He's a workhorse, and that's his thing. That's his technical ability, is to work hard, and that's kind of what I like about El Neni, bringing in to a pressing team. He counteracts the press a bit, and that allows that party to be a bit more comfortable. He'll know he's a bit deeper. And then obviously we can play the deeper role, because you've got that defensive minded midfielder. Now we've built our foundation. It's just what we do in front of it that really will impact what we do. And in terms of, some people have asked, like, what does that mean for the 3-2-5 that we traditionally attack in? Well, instead, what happens is Tomiyasu is the one going forward. El Neni breaks the centre backs, and he's the one sitting sort of higher up, but in the middle. But so it's like for me, the way it works, it's like a triangle. So you've got Gabriel on your left hand side, a bit deeper, and then White on the rightish side a bit deep, and then El Neni just a bit forward to counteract the first. So he's the first man, and that's the way it works. And then what that allows you to do is not only squeeze the pitch to stop their press, but if we then wanted to sit back, we've got El Neni to help us do that and not bypass the midfield and straight into our defense, which by the way has been trying to do its best. And then I know they conceded too. But yeah, man, El Neni for Ballon d'Or for some of the goals he scores in it. So yeah, that's for me how we can replicate it is keep the system the same or trying to get as much like for like. You've tried Lokonga, he's not been able to do that role, right? You then not all right, I'm just going to scrap the double pivot. Don't do that. Then use El Neni. If El Neni doesn't work, then use Maitland-Niles. Okay, if that, then all three, if we've all seen it, neither one has worked, then yes, do this stupidness, do this single pivot, do this like Odegaard. I get then experimenting to try and see if you can get out of this mess. But what you've done is you've gone to the far extreme first, and then you're bringing it back to what makes sense. Do the thing that makes the most sense. Then go to the things that actually they're a bit wild, but I get why you need to do it, why you need to try Lokonga, why you need to try Odegaard. Not let me skip the steps and then come back to them.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I just want us to kind of go back to the basics. And I know that some people don't want to see us playing out of the back, but I have this weird thing about what was the point of bringing in Ben White and Ramsdale if we're not going to play out of the back? That's why they're there. It's because Ramsdale is supposed to be a better ball playing keeper than Leno. Ben White is supposed to be able to replicate what David Luiz does. So Tomiyasu has a great switch on him. The whole point of having these players is to be able to play out of the back. Now, the issue with that is we always get to this point where they start to really press us. And if they're smart, they'll stand on top of Thomas Partey and they'll kill one of our outlets. The main thing for me is that learn from your mistakes. Against Brighton, we didn't have an outlet up top. We didn't have a player that would stand up there, battle for the ball, get us fouls, get us out, just in case we couldn't play out of the back. And that's why, in this game, I'm wondering if it would be better to start with Lacazette through the middle, just to make sure that we have some sort of outlet. If we don't, and they press us and we can't play out of the back, then we're back to hoofing it up the field to no one, and as good as Aubameyang was in the last game, I don't know that it's as easy as, okay, well, because Aubameyang ran his socks off and he got a goal, then that means put him amongst, Mings and Courtney Hawes or Konsa, defenders that are going to be very well versed. They're going to be very well coached into making sure that we don't get Aubameyang on the ball. I would want to see Lacazette up there just so that we can have that extra option if we have to hoof it long. You also have Pepe, because I don't know if Saka is going to play or not. You can have Pepe as another outlet. That leaves, for me, left wing, and then maybe you can put Aubameyang there. A lot of people want to see Aubameyang in the team because of how hard he worked against Crystal Palace. And yeah, I think that that's a good reason to give somebody a shot. I do think at a bare minimum, our players should be working hard, but he is technically in goal scoring form. So you want to keep him on. Maybe you could play him off of the left, but I fear that he'll get swallowed up by Mings and Courtney Hawes and Konsa if we don't have that outlet. I think it'll be too easy for them to play like Brighton against us if we don't have somebody like Lacazette up there to hold the ball up. What do you think about the front four? I think we kind of both agree on we're going to have Thomas Partey and El Neni, but the front four really makes a huge difference, because that balance of that front four hasn't been right for a couple of games now.
But for his whole tenure, it hasn't been great. He's had it right in a few games, I'd say, but generally he's forced into making it right. Not really he's made the decision when everyone's fit. But you make a really good point, because I was looking back at, because I remember obviously with the Wolves and Aston Villa game, what a game that was, by the way. But when like I said, when you first watch it, you kind of just watch it. You don't realize things that have happened. And obviously you had Hwang Chi from but the Bundesliga come over, obviously the new signing, started off well, but obviously in a game like this, the reason why I want to mention this is because Hwang Chi is like our Aubameyang, a pacier player. What happened was they were losing 2-0. What did they do? Bought in Podence. Raul Jimenez, and Fabio Silva. Now, the reason why I want to highlight this is because they changed their front three, right? And the reason why I want to again highlight is because they brought Raul Jimenez on. Now, Jimenez, for me, I'm not saying quality-wise, but I'm just talking in terms of similar-ish profiles, is more like a Lacazette. Someone who can hold on to the ball, but obviously turn and run, which Lacazette can also sometimes do. And that's what changed the game for them. That's what got them, well, that's what won them the game, not even got them back into it. It's because they then had someone who can retain the ball, not just need to play in behind, which, by the way, the Aston Villa defence is notoriously good at. They've got decently pacey back. They've got a back three of like Konsa, Tuanzebe, Mings, or Courtney House, depending on obviously who they're playing. Then obviously in front of them, they've got Douglas Luiz and McGinn, which are solid at taking out and being that sort of stopping the passing lanes to get in behind. So if you can then get someone, if you hoof it up, someone who can hold the ball up and then have two runners in behind, whether that's Aubameyang, Martinelli, or whether that's Nicola Pepe or Saka, depending on whether he's back. Obviously, there's rumours he's doubtful. He might be on the bench, if anything, and I don't know whether they're going to start him. Mm-hmm. We'll see. But either way, let's just go with what we know and ignore Saka for the second because we don't know. I would like to see Lacazette if you're scouting their recent game, that's what they did. And that's how they won because they had a whole ball. And when you look at their performance against Man United, the reason why United couldn't do anything is because no one was holding the ball. And that's one of the reasons why United were having no luck against Villa. And we've got someone who's basically, this is his bread and butter, is holding the play up and then allowing other people to get into it and get involved. ESR can then run in behind him or in front of him and go in behind, and he's got an outlet there for him as well. And to be honest with you, ESR is a good goal scorer. It's just we don't deploy him as one. That's why he doesn't get as many goals as he could. And that's the way to start. Get the start right, and then you can do whatever the hell you want to do. Once you've got that 2-3-0 cushion, then yeah, you can do what you need to do. But start the game right, be logical. Look at how Wolves did it. They changed it in game, and that won them the game. Not even, they conceded 3 after Jimenez came on and Podence came on. And for me, that's the way I would do it. And to be fair, the wingers need to be runners. And it can't be Odegaard. If Lacazette plays, it can't be Odegaard. It has to be ESR in the 10. And then it's Martinelli. I wouldn't play ESR onto the left because he's just not a runner like that. But I'd like him to play in the 10 with Lacazette. I would like to see Martinelli. I mean, if Saka's injured, that's more likely to happen then. But I think it'll be Pepe and...
I mean, it was probably going to be Pepe and Aubameyang. Like, I don't know if I see Arteta. For me personally, I think the balance is most right with Lacazette, Martinelli, Pepe, and ESR. For me, that feels like that makes the most sense. But Arteta is probably going to go with the mind that you can't drop Aubameyang, which kind of makes sense because he's your best goal scorer. Yeah, I don't really mind it either way either. I think some people are really like, if you drop Aubameyang, that means that you're punishing him. But dropping somebody is also, it's called selection. You make a selection. Sometimes it's not, when you're dropping somebody, it's because they had a bad performance or whatever. When it's a selection thing, you're selecting somebody else because it's better for that particular game. And it doesn't seem like the fan base has any sort of nuance when it comes to that. When I say that I maybe prefer Martinelli and Lacazette over, Aubameyang playing, it's not because I hate Aubameyang or I couldn't see that he had a good game. I just think Aston Villa and Dean Smith are going to be smart enough to know that if they put 2 center backs, big center backs, Mings and Courtney Hawes or Tuanzebe on Aubameyang, he'll get swallowed up. And then when they decide to shut down Thomas Partey and we can't play out of the back and we try to kick it over the top, there won't be anybody for us to get the ball to. So it would be good to tackle things that we know don't work. And Brighton did a very good job of that, making sure that Aubameyang couldn't get to the ball. They were very smart, and I think Aston Villa will do the exact same thing. And if you just have Lacazette up there, and even if you decide to put Aubameyang on the left, I don't love it, but if you just want to make sure he's in the team, that's fine. I just feel like at some point you will still be wanting Martinelli on. But what this allows you to do, whether you have Aubameyang or Martinelli, is if, like you said, if we're losing or we need to kind of get back into the game or whatever, you can take El Neni out and bring Odegaard in and then play the way that we did against West Ham. We also played this way against Aston Villa when we were losing against them last season. That was one of the first times that I saw us put Odegaard and ESR and all of them out there together. So I just want to see us not make the same mistakes. And the main things that I think is playing in a double pivot, whether that's Thomas and Ainsley Maitland-Niles or Thomas and El Neni, that's fine, whichever one. Maybe drop Odegaard and make sure you have ESR in there and keep that connection between ESR and Lacazette, and then decide from there what you do with Aubameyang or Martinelli. Then it's fine. And I do think Pepe and Lacazette play well together. Even though Pepe is not my favorite, I think Lacazette and him do quite well together.
And he counteracts their midfield press because he drops in deep.
Yeah, exactly. So we have some options, but at the same time, I think it's just about making sure that you keep the balance of the team, make sure your players are not played out of position, and learning from your mistakes. And this is a very winnable game. You know, I don't think Aston Villa are as good as they were last season. I think they're about the same as they were last season. And it may just, like you said, be because they're waiting for some of their players to get into it and all that kind of stuff. But I think we match up with them well. The main issue between them and us is that we don't press and they do, and we don't like to be pressed. You know, so, and I would like to see us press a little bit in this game. You know, I would like to see it. That graphic that went around that just pretty much showed that we just don't engage in pressing, and we're built for it. That's what's weird to me is that we have Odegaard, ESR, Saka, Pepe, and Martinelli. You can rotate those four and still run their legs off and get some really good pressing going, especially because we don't really create a lot of chances, and that's a good way for us to create chances. So, I mean, what do you think the deal is with the pressing thing? Why do you think that Arteta is so reluctant to instill that as a part of what like is a fabric of how we do things? Because in the Premier League, pretty much everybody presses but us.
Yeah, no, our best performances have come from when we've pressed teams. Like, even if you look at the Spurs game, for example, it came off the back of us pressing them or pressing them into mistakes. When we look at I'll call it his sort of half season that he stood when he came in near the end of the season when he got Nelson to press Van Dijk into mistakes, and we scored off the back of it and actually won that game off of two pressing mistakes. And when we pressed them, we asked questions of them off the press. They conceded 2 goals off of it. So I don't really understand it. I think my theory is anyway, our players are too injury prone, and I think he's realizing that they're not maybe fit enough to do this for 38 games. So he's trying to do something where, yes, we press in phases of the game, but we don't press for 90 minutes and we press for less than majority of the game. Because if you got Tierney to engage in a lot of press, for example, he will get injured. Partey, for example, we don't know. Like Touchwood, obviously, I'm hoping these guys are properly recovered and they can do it. But I think with Tierney, with Partey, for example, with Saka, these guys have gotten injured a lot when they've been working a lot harder. So I think he's just trying to preserve them more than anything, and he's reluctant to letting them press. But I don't know. That's a theory at the end of the day. I don't know what the real reason is. Unless you spoke to Arteta, I don't think anyone knows what the real reason is. Because it is been.
I mean, somebody in those press conferences needs to say, why don't we press like for more than 10 minutes?
Yeah.
You know, like I just don't get it.
That's a theory I have. I don't know, but that's because the thing is, like, obviously, Tierney. I don't want to say it because you'll get injured the next game as soon as I say this. But what I'm saying is like Tierney hasn't gotten injured, or he hasn't looked like an injury is coming.
Oh, why'd you say that?
Since we haven't made him work hard. If that makes like it's, but I didn't want to say it, but I had to say it. And like it's just. My party has been injured, so I can't really say he doesn't get injured. But
okay, I'm gonna be knocking on all types of wood because
fam, I've got to do it. Fam, just give me a forest. Give me a forest. I'm touching everything.
Oh my goodness, no, I get that, and I wonder why he's so reluctant to do it because, and I know that it creates risk because if you pass around the press, then you're exposed. But at the same time, that's the game, isn't it? Like that's the game is that there's risk versus reward.
That's the annoying thing.
I
He
mean, he
talked
did.
about he talked about in his first few press conferences. He was like, the game's about risk versus reward, and when you press, there's a high risk, but there's a high reward for it as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, where is it?
Yeah, I mean, the first two games that we played with him was like Manchester United and Chelsea, and we pressed in both of those games. We just couldn't keep it up for the whole entire game. But that's why you have your Martinellis and your younger players that you can rotate in when they become tired. And it's interesting because I don't know if you guys don't, if you watch our women play, what the new coaches kind of brought in is we have so many wing players, and it seemed like, why do we have so many? It's because he runs their socks off. Like Tobin Heath and Beth Mead will come out in the 60th minute, and then Paris and somebody else will come in, because in his mind he wants them to run as hard as they possibly can for as long as they can. And we kind of have a similar kind of look to our team where we have some youngish wing players. I just don't know why we don't press and why we don't use that to our advantage, because we don't create a lot of chances with our system naturally, and it would just help a little bit. But it's interesting. I don't know why he doesn't do it. I don't know why nobody asked him, but Tony asked, are we asking for too many changes? Add El Neni, drop Odie, Saka might start, may not, add Laka. I guess I do hear what you're saying, but for me, I don't think what we've done in the last two games in particular have been a foundation to build off of, where we need to keep it sturdy in order to move forward. I think we had something going before the Brighton game, and then once Xhaka got hurt, we started doing things that didn't really work. We tore it apart. We started playing with Odegaard as a left center mid, ESR kind of off on the right. We're not really playing in central spaces anymore. Thomas is by himself. You know, those things are not, for me, something that we should hold on to, because it fundamentally just didn't work. I think our foundation is a double pivot. That is our foundation, is a double pivot. And that's what we need to build off of. So as long as we have that, I feel like we'll go back into what we normally do. Now up top, that's a completely different thing. We could be throwing off everything by bringing in Lacazette. What I would say is, at the very minimum, even if I don't get Lacazette, even if Martinelli doesn't come in, at the very least, I want to see a 10 in the 10 position and a double pivot. Whether that's Odegaard or ESR. If it's Odegaard, then you have to play Aubameyang. But the only thing that I say for sure, and maybe Souls, you agree with this too, is even regardless of what happens up top, that we just have to go back to a double pivot. That's the bare
100%.
minimum.
And the thing is, when you are saying too many changes, I mean, it's a good question. I'm not criticizing the question here, but when you say too many changes, what Arteta's done is too many changes in the last two games, in my opinion. What we're asking him to do is go back to what you did, but just change a personnel, which is obviously Xhaka, well, due to injury more than like me not wanting him in the team, and bring in El Neni, because it's just, I'm not saying it's a like for like, because the profiles are a little bit different, but what you're asking for is a deeper lying midfielder for a deeper lying midfielder. That's the change that you make. And obviously when we say Lacazette's and the other change, and then ESR is in the team anyway, so then all you're doing is you're just shifting a few players around to mold a better system up top. And it's only the up top that's really changing. Everything else is basically the same. And as much as I don't like Aubameyang on the left, I do need to see Lacazette in the middle. So that's the only compromise I'm willing to make. If Lacazette's in the middle, I get why you put Aubameyang on the left, even though I'm not a big fan of it. But I do need to see a hold-up player in the middle for me.
Yeah, I think we would be making a fatal mistake if we didn't. But I feel like the most important thing is reverting back to that double pivot. And I
100%.
know people don't want to see El Neni. I freaking know that. I don't want to see
Oh,
El Neni either.
I've had 4 weeks of shit for that one, but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to see this midfield three with Thomas basically on an island by himself. So I'm willing to concede a little bit, but we'll definitely see what happens. I don't know how I feel about this game. I kind of feel nothing, because it's also because we had a game on Monday and now we have a game tomorrow. Hasn't given me enough time to get properly anxious about it and start to really like overthink it. Right now, I just kind of think it is what it is. And O'Malley, I hear what you're saying. Like, he had 150 million to get players who can press and play the way he wants to. And I think based on what we have, he has players that can play whatever way he wants to. I think we're back kind of to what is that? Are we a possession-based team? Are we a counter-attacking team? Are we a pressing team? What are we doing? And hopefully tomorrow, maybe we'll get back to knowing what we are. What I do know is that we're a 4-2-3-1 by default. We
Do you
just
know what it
are.
is? The thing is, the signings do make sense. Like I'm not because I get why Lukonga was bought in because Partey was the one getting injured. I think everything was thrown off when Xhaka got the big injury and it wasn't Partey this time. And I think, but again, look, things happen in football. You should be prepared regardless. We were meant to be selling him to Roma, but Roma weren't meeting. They were slightly undervaluating, obviously, Xhaka. We weren't willing to just sell him. We did think of him as a key player, and I think if he was sold, we'd bring the midfielder in. Obviously, now reports are coming out the midfield is a priority in January, and they're going to do all they can to get their number one target. But for that, obviously, they need to be in contention for the European spots to be able to entice that player to come in.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with that. The Onyx Lens has been talking about hating the double pivot. The Onyx Lens says the double pivot is useless without a world class striker and a world class 10, and we don't have either. I guess my thing with that is I could understand not playing a double pivot if we had a 6. And the misprofiling of Thomas Partey, I think, is leaving people to feel like we should be playing with just one defensive center. And what I will say is that if we had another player that was an 8, but had any sort of defensive quality, we could play with Thomas Partey and somebody else and leave him a little bit deeper. The reality is that when you play with 2 10s and an 8, it's just not good enough. You can play with an 8, like you can essentially play with 3 8s if you wanted to, but everybody has to do their part. And I just don't think ESR and Odegaard have the defensive like positioning and responsibility in order to help Thomas when he's out on that island. So until we get like a Bruno Guimaraes type of player, or because I don't even think you could do it with just Awar. I don't think you could do a Thomas, Awar, and Odegaard. I think you have some of the same issues. But if you had a Bruno Guimaraes, somebody that could play a 6/8, and then you have somebody that could play a 8/10, then you have the right balance to actually support Thomas. But until then, you have to play with a double pivot because we just don't have the players to do it. Unless we're playing against a team that just allows us all of the possession, doesn't press us, and is stupid enough to let us pass it around like that, but I'd prefer to move away from a double pivot because I think it's kind of like, but at the moment that's what we are, you know. Nashville Gooner says a new CM in January would make me smile. It would make me smile as well, as long as it's not Oxlade-Chamberlain. Tony says a proper 6 Nashville, you guys are talking to each other. Dublin Gunner says, does that mean that you're refusing? You guys are talking to each other. Tony, Nashville, and Dublin are all having a conversation just to each other, and we're not in it. Okay, Tam says Frank Kessie. I haven't watched him play in so long. At we got Thomas, he was
He's
somebody
good.
that I wanted, but I haven't watched him play in a minute. At this point, I just feel like they put themselves in a position where they're under pressure because they chose not to sell Xhaka. And that's, I get that part. I've moved on from that, but you still could have brought in another midfielder. But they had decided that their starting midfielders were going to be Xhaka and Partey, and we're going to roll on with that, even though they knew that Thomas was going to leave for AFCON. And Lukonga is somebody that is not quite ready to step into those boots. And we don't have another senior ready to go center midfielder that has the juice to step in. We just don't have it. El Neni is not really that guy. Izzy Milanao is not that guy. And we're going to be using some piecemeal version of that to get us through until the second half of the season. And I think that's self-inflicted by the board, because we were screaming on this channel that we need, I didn't care if Xhaka stayed or not. I still thought we should have brought in another midfielder, because I don't understand this level of we don't want any competition for our starters. I think it's stupid. And then it leaves you in positions like this where you're always an injury away from catastrophe, so that's kind of where we are. Let's see. Jean Rene says, agreed, Jess, well argued. We need a Bruno G profile. It doesn't have to be Bruno G. It could be somebody of that profile. I like Paqueta. He's also I want Leon's midfield. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
Bring me
yeah,
Awa,
100%.
Paqueta. You can bring me Bruno G. You can bring me any of those guys because they're more well-rounded midfielders and we have a lot of specialists in our team. O'Malley says, another question I have is, should Ainsley Maitland-Niles get more time at right back when we are trying to attack more? Does he really help us in attack? Like, what do you think about Ainsley Maitland-Niles playing right back in a more attacking capacity because Tomiyasu is quite conservative?
Put Saka right wing, it solves everything. Honestly, that's what we need to. And that's the mind-boggling thing, because the thing is, like, the reason why we're saying this is more because Pepe can't do the role on his own, and he needs someone to overlap or support him. That's why when we seen him on the left, he was playing better, because he had Taney overlapping him, giving him a secondary option not to lose the ball. So yeah, that's all it is. Like, I think for me, it's more put Saka onto the right. You'll get the best of Tomiyasu. And you'll get the best of Saka because he can play in an isolated winger role. Whereas with Pepe, I'm not saying he needs his hand holding, but he does need support on the wing back from the full back, or an overlapping midfielder, whatever the case may be. But he needs someone to overlap him to actually get a lot of. That's how Cedric and Pepe were really good on the right hand side. But then when you brought Bellerin into the equation, it wasn't great. So that's all it is for me. It's not about who plays the right back role too much.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me with Ainsley, I want him in a position where he's going to be engaged. And unfortunately, I don't really think he engages as much as a right back as he does in midfield. Um, you know, will he help us attacking wise? I think his final ball kind of leaves a lot to be desired. He will overlap. I think he has that in abundance, and he's quicker than Tomiyasu. But does he add something going forward in terms of an attacking threat? I don't really think so. He just is more quick, and we can trust him to go a little bit more further forward. But I do think that we already kind of heard rumors that there are, the club is looking for a more attacking right back, for the future and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that we will need. But right now, I just think you rock out with Tomiyasu for as long as possible. I think he's just fine.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, we've always said that, like, we see Tomiyasu as a long-term centre-back solution more than we see him as a right-back solution.
Yeah, for sure. Richard De Earl says Boubacar Kamara, Tuchumeni. Why am I Chouameni? Sorry,
Yeah,
or Rice. Dream number 6 for Arsenal. Yeah, I mean, I think all of those are good choices. Boubacar Kamara is somebody that George really likes. I know Souls really likes him. I like him as well. He's too young for me. Like, I just think
he needs to come in as well as someone else.
Yeah, he's not somebody that I would bring in as this 6. Chouameni is further along in his development, even though I think they're similar in age. He's already in the French national team. He's already somebody, but I also think that that's somebody that is going to end up where whoever doesn't get Declan Rice will end up getting Chouameni. That's how it will work this summer.
It's annoying to say, but yeah, it's true. He would be a dream.
Yeah, if Chelsea gets Declan Rice, then Manchester United will get Chouameni. Like, that's kind of what I feel like will happen.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping we leapfrog them into Europe. It's not happening, but that's my dream. Like I said, this is a dream scenario, so let me dream. But yeah, I hope we finish above United, then we can go in for it.
Yeah, for sure.
But they won't do it because it makes too much sense.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's just one of those where it's like we know that position needs to come in. I think we're 2 midfielders short, and a Xhaka sail away from having the right type of midfield profiles. I think we need an 8 and a 6, and we still need a striker, probably a left wing, depending on. It really depends. I think we could play with a left wing like Martinelli, but the way that Arteta wants to play is with a left wing that's more like a 10. So that leaves us in a position where it's kind of like, nah, we'll see what happens, and an attacking right back. But the most important thing is tomorrow winning the game, getting back on track, stopping the rot. If we don't win this game, it will look suspect. It already looks suspect. It's going to look even more suspect. So what's your score prediction, Souls? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
It's annoying because I just don't know what he's going to do, and that's what's the hard thing to predict. I've always said I've got two predictions. If he plays the Elneny with the double pivot, then I reckon we beat them 2-1. But if he doesn't, I can't ever predict us losing. It's just not in my nature. But I'll go. The worst I can do is a draw. So that's the best you guys are getting. If we go with Thomas Partey as a lone pivot or with Lokonga, it's gonna be a long night. But I'll say 1-1 in that situation.
Yeah. In my predictions, I have this as a loss. I just think they have our number, and I haven't seen what is going to change from last season to this season because they're very pressing, and every team that's pressed us, we have not been able to really get a grip. So, but I will not predict that Arsenal are going to lose on stream. So I'm going to say 1-1. I do think it's going to be a
No, you
difficult
can.
game.
I'm just someone who can't do it. It's not in my nature to do it.
No, I won't do it. In this run
Don't
of four
forget if the
games,
Egyptian Perlo plays, right? If he plays, it's wicked, isn't it?
I know, right? Like I don't know. I need to
Well,
see
imagine if
something
he plays
change to
and
be
he
able to
scores
predict
the
it.
winner. Oh, amazing! Because
Oh
that
yeah, I would love
I
that.
am
I would
coming
love
for
that.
so many people for giving me crap for saying he needs to play.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that we need something to be excited about. And the thing about it is that the Spurs, when that feeling died off so quickly because we didn't keep that going. And so
Yeah,
now it feels like we're back at square one trying to figure out how do we play? Who are we? Who's the starting 11? These things. So I think if we could stop the rot here and Arteta can solve some of the issues that he's had over the last two games and we get a win. It doesn't have to be 3-0 or anything like that for me. It could be a 1-0, but just convincing where we look cohesive. That's fine, but we'll definitely see what happens. But tomorrow we'll be back for the instant match reaction immediately following the game right here at She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend. Let me know what your score predictions are going to be and all of that great, wonderful stuff. Tonight, I'm going to be watching the U.S. women play because they usually win every game, you guys. That's where I get my joy from. So yeah. Oh, let me see. Richard Earl, before we leave, he had his lineup: Ramsdale, Tavares, White, Gabrielle, Tomiyasu, Party, Mainland, Gabby, Smith Rowe, Pepe, and Lacazette. Lacazette. I love that. I think that's the lineup that I didn't. I had El Neni in there. Some version of that would be great, but we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow immediately following the game. Hopefully we enjoy it. Bye guys.